guys, it's hot today. Out here trying to get people going. They're turning on their AC and finding out their compressors have died over the winter and stuff like that. And my van's not working either. I had this set of gauges. I actually got them from the guy who was living in my house when I bought it. And it had a, I just looked back there on the shelf and saw it. It had an attachment for low side AC. So I popped it on here, and sure enough, she's got 50 PSI sitting here, you know, not running, and everything's kind of warm too because I've been driving. So let's start it up and see if it's just not pulling down real quickly. Yep, before I got around here, it already sucked down. Let's see, there we go. Yep, she's pulling way down, which of course what that means is that pressure switch down there is cutting it off because it don't have enough gas in it.
It ain't got no gas in it.
I rubbed right here, you can see. That's where the condensate drips out on these Chevys. And it's dirty and oily. So I'm gonna assume that I've probably got a leak in the evaporator. But I also got a big jug of 134 and a healthy skepticism that it's actually going to harm the environment very much.
How dare you?
So I'm going to geist this sucker up so I can go work right now, and in the meantime I'll get me some parts ordered for this thing. I'm just going to one hose it and get it in here right quick so we can get back to work. It'll probably only pull it in when it's pumping. We'll just keep adding it to it until it, you know, stays on for a pretty good while, and we'll know we're good for a day or two. I assume this whole, I heard it cycling at the drive-thru the other morning, and I thought, that's kind of weird. And so today it's just completely give up the ghost. See, at 30 PSI it's staying on. Once it drops much below 25, I'd say it'll be turning off. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more. Oh yeah, that's nice and cool. I had to roll the window down on the way back from the next town over because it was just way too warm in the van. So I assume I could probably pull that. This should be like the blower resistor that changes speeds. They usually put it in the airstream. I could probably pull that out and see down in there, but if you look at this thing, you know, most cars today, you have to pull the dash out and take the box out from the inside, but this thing is split around there. And I bet if I pull the battery out, maybe this tank off, I can pull that front off. So hopefully I can replace this evaporator from outside. I'll Google it and see what I can find. The suction line in the accumulator dryer there is starting to sweat, so we got some gas in her now. It's holding right there at 50 while it's running. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I may, if I have time later this afternoon, I may pull that resistor out, stick a leak detector down in there. But the fact that my brother-in-law could smell the oil, and that, you know, there's no reason for that water to attract dirt like that without it, you know, without it having oil in it. I'm going to just assume that's probably a bad evaporator. You know, of course these are, I guess, micro channel. I guess that's probably where it started, was in cars. So we can get us one of these ordered, probably get a new dryer at the same time. This thing, I assume, is going to be an orifice system. Probably got an orifice right there. So we could get all these parts coming this way. And I looked on YouTube a second ago, just seeing, you know, if there was anything on changing this, and I couldn't find one, you know, couple of minutes that I look. So I'll look a little deeper, and we might have to put one up that shows people how to change an evaporator. Put your little cover back on, because I usually leave mine laying out here on the grill somewhere. But we got us a gas and go. Oh yeah, that feels real nice. If we have to, we'll set that blue jug right over there in the floorboard and crack the valve a little bit until we have time to fix it. So 76,000 miles. That's how long an evaporator lasts these days.
3 weeks later.
She's real flat. She's flatter than Bud Light cells. Well, you might be watching this video some years in the future, and you might say, what's going on with Bud Light cells? Of course, the other thing you could say is maybe, what's Bud Light? I've never heard of it. Either way, something happened, right? The evaporator is actually located in this box out here. I pulled out this little blower resistor the other day, and you could actually see it down in there, and there's no way to get to it from inside, so hopefully this will be easier than most vehicles to get to the evaporator. It looks like I got a line over here. You can see it's kind of clamped on the edge there, and it looks like it goes down and goes in the bottom. And then your accumulator dryer is right down here. And I assume it's probably bolted to the actual line coming out of the evaporator. I went ahead and purchased this evaporator. I guess this is going to stand here like that. So yeah, you got this hole and a stud goes there. Here's the new accumulator dryer. Looks like that bolt's on there. Probably bolt the hose on here. That's probably a pressure switch, and that's my gauge port. So hopefully that's the problem. I could put a little gas in it and it'd last for a few days, but this is Monday afternoon. I gassed it up on Friday, and it wasn't working Saturday, and today it's flat. So I'm going to go ahead and start trying to pull this apart. I went to pull that resistor out the other day when I was just going to look for a leak, and I have a 5mm and a 6mm, and it's in between those. I've seen a lot of 5.5mm, but my little Craftsman kit doesn't have one. I've got a 7/32. I think that's the closest thing to 5.5 that I'll have. Yeah, that'll take them right out. So you either need a 5.5mm or a 7/32 to take these little self-threading screws out of the plastic box here. I may go ahead, I know I'm going to take this reservoir off and kind of put it out of the way, but I'd like to leave the battery in, but I bet there's just no way to back this thing up enough. This is a 10mm. I'm just going to take it loose and try to set this reservoir out of my way. And setting it out of the way ain't going to work because this hose is about 2 inches long, so I'm just going to snap one of these clamps loose and try to just not spill it and set it over on the table. Well, that opened her up some. I'm going to, I already unplugged this resistor here, but I think I'll go ahead and unplug the fan motor from the resistor and take the fan motor on out of here, and that'll give us a good look inside too. So these 4 screws take out the blower motor. This harness is actually clamped under one of them right up here. So got it out of the way. And we can kind of see the evaporator down in there. They've got a 10mm stud over on that side, but if it's anything like mine, it's finger tight. So, actually I don't think I needed to take it off, but I just reached up there and touched it, and it wasn't tight at all. So I think it's actually split before it gets to that part. So I may just screw that back on and, you know, torque it down before I move ahead. We got a little pressure switch down here on the side of the accumulator we have to take loose. Looks like it just clips onto this liquid line here. So got it out of the way there. So we can see where the accumulator comes out and turns into the evaporator coil there. So I guess we just take that one bolt out there and this bolt here, and we can actually remove the accumulator now. Okay, these nuts are 13mm, and they're pretty tight. But then it looks like this should just pull apart and probably have an O-ring seal. Got new, I bought a new O-ring set, so we would make sure and have everything. I don't know if this thing is attached at the bottom to anything, or if it's just sitting in a bracket. Guess I'll find out. Oh, it's got a bracket on it. It's that metal bracket right there. I think rather than trying to get down to the bottom, I may just take those 2 screws out. I can see pretty easy. I can see that one, but I don't have a lot of fancy tools. It doesn't take fancy tools. It'll actually tilt over so you can get your hand down in there. And I'm just gonna go ahead, that's a 10 millimeter. So just go ahead and get it on out of there, and then it's a clamp, looks like probably around the actual accumulator body. So with this Velcro insulator on here, you might have to take the whole thing out and you know, put the clamp on out here. So here she is. Here's that bolt I was taking loose. So looks like this thing will just slip off and that clamp goes around there. This is awful oily too. Wonder where all that come from. Maybe that's my problem. It's probably just moisture, right? Yeah. It's just water. I pulled this bracket off because it had the same screws in it, and I thought maybe it was, you know, would go all the way through. But look at the dye and the oil on this thing. It's got to be coming out of that evaporator housing. I heard one time that automotive manufacturers put dye in their systems, you know, all the time. So apparently they do, because that's bound to be dye. Look how green it looks. That would also be why the accumulator was oily. The oil would have ran down this thing, went over, went inside that little cover there. So I put a little nitrogen in it just to see if it held pressure, see if I could, you know, see anything, but it did. So I'm thinking that was just because it was running down this bracket. Looking to see, yeah, got one there. What else we got? Any more around that way? One there. There's 2 underneath there. And those are gonna be not much fun at all. So 2 on top above the blower and 2 underneath the blower housing. That'll be the ones that's hard to get to. And I went ahead and pulled this loose. I hope that I can get these studs out, since the new one didn't come with any, because they're awful tight. They're supposed to be basically a metering device, an orifice tube they call it in here. I bought a new one, but there should be one back in there somewhere. We'll look when we get it out, if we get it out. Even with this on there, there's not room to get it on its square to take it loose. I need a wrench. I don't have a wrench. I looked everywhere. I do have another 7/32 socket and an 11 millimeter wrench. So I'm gonna take this big press and push this together and see if I can use it like a wrench. Feels like it bottomed out right there. Oh yeah, that should be perfect. Hey, it's turning. Fortunately, these things are very, very coarse threaded, so it shouldn't take many turns to get it out of there. I'm going to lay the phone down so I can use both hands. Well, it's slow going, because even out that far, you can't really get your fingers up in there enough to get a hold of it, at least with my big fat hands. So you just have to keep turning it at little 1/6 of a turn at a time. Finally. Okay, one more hard one. Hopefully it ain't this bad though. Oh, this one you can actually get on with a universal, so I'm going to use both hands so it don't slip off. But I don't think that's going to be your only bad one right there. As long as you got a universal, you'll be able to get this one out using 2 hands. I went ahead and took this one screw out from the side using just a ratchet and a 7/32 socket, because I thought maybe if the evaporator stayed in, I could get the cover off without taking the battery out. But everything's moving pretty good now, so I'm not sure what's going to come or what's going to have to be moved, but I think worst case scenario is we'll have to take the battery out. Or best case scenario, we don't have to take nothing out. The evaporator came out, so you can leave that screw on the side until later. It's real oily over on this corner. See it on my fingers there? Of course, this thing just runs out right there. They went to a lot of expense on making their condensate drain on this thing. So I'm gonna go over here and look at the evaporator, mostly on this side, and see what we got. You can almost see the green right there in that little clamshell looking spot. So she's leaking somewhere, I'm pretty sure. I don't think all that oil just got in there magically. Good thing we got a new one. Now, if you're a real mechanic, you probably got some kind of fancy female Torx socket that would go on here, maybe a T30, T35, T40, I don't know. But I don't have anything like that, so what I'm gonna do is take two of these nuts and two 13mm riches. I'm gonna lock them together and then pull the stud out of that fixture down there. Got her carried over there and got her set back up in here. Of course, I put that clamp back on there. That held one side of the evaporator. You can reach through the hole and hold the other side as you come in. But once I got it up there, it keeps wanting to fall out, and I don't have any screws here. They're all on the table. So, phone case to the rescue. Trying to see if I got my garment back on there good around that hose. See how it fits in the case? Got one on both sides. I believe that'll do. So I've just got two screws barely started. I'm going to try to do that one up top first before, you know, alignment gets to be a problem. But I'm thinking that if you ever take one of these out and that screw's missing, you'll know that somebody's been here before, because it's going to be hard to get back in there. Now that I got it in a hole, I don't know what to do with it.
That's what she said.
This is terrible. That may not get put back, but I'll keep trying for, you know, 30, 45 minutes tops. There he is. Couldn't find him. I know about where he is now. Well, there's the old orifice tube in the evaporator inlet. See if we can get her out of there and see what she looks like. So basically it's a screen with a certain size hole in the end of it to meter the refrigerant as it goes through. So the screen looks pretty dirty, so I'm glad I got a new one. Here's the new one. It's an actual genuine GM part. So we'll slide that into the new evaporator before we put the line on. You can see the little tube better in this one because the screen's not so dirty. It's that little brass copper looking tube there. That's where all the refrigerant gets metered through on its way in here. So we just gotta put him back in there. Just take it off. And we'll be ready to, I put a little oil on that O-ring just off my finger because Everything's got oil on it now. They didn't put one in there already, did they? Don't see one. Let me make sure I've got enough oil on it. It felt pretty tight. I'll take my needle nose or something and push that on up in there. Seat it like they had it. Okay, so that's bottomed out. So now we need a new O-ring gasket for this spot, and we can put this back together. It's going to look something like this old one. So I'll pull it off and use it to find the new one. So here's the old one. And I've got this entire kit here, so I'll just match it up and put it on there. That looks like the one I want. She fits like a glove. So we'll just line all this back up and put a, I'll have to get a hold of it a little different. Hang on, may have to bend a little. Okay, I got that one put on and bolted down, tightened up. Put my little clamp back on next to the service port here. And I know what you're thinking. Did he put that screw in? He got it. Actually went in easier than it came out because I guess the angle maybe could be a little different with your nut driver going up this way. So here's our old dryer. We're gonna have to take that pressure switch off and put it over on the new one. Also got to pull that stud out. So let's get that done. Take the stud out, but I didn't need it. This one actually had a stud. This is the pressure switch port. It has a Schrader valve in it. O-ring there, so that switch wasn't very tight. 16 millimeter took it off, so I'll just screw the switch right back on this new accumulator. The new accumulator comes with a gasket on this side that bolts up to the evaporator. That cap holds it on, and they actually had one in a little bag that came with it, but since I've already got this pack opened, I just pulled the one out of it. This is the old one. I took it off the hose that goes on here, the suction hose. So I'll just put the new gasket on the suction hose over on the vehicle, and then we'll put this guy in. Got to get that, where'd it go? Got to get that bag and clamp back on it. Okay, I've barely got that bolt started down there in the clamp. And after I got it started, I'll slip this accumulator up on the evaporator line back there and got it pushed back to where the gasket starts touching. And then I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up this bolt first, and then I'll get something down there and tighten up that 10 millimeter. And you was able to get to that with just a 3/8 ratchet, an extension, and a universal on a 10 millimeter socket. I got it tightened up now, so we'll jump over here and tighten up this 13 millimeter nut with that new gasket, and we should be ready to pressure test. I got a hose hooked to the high side and a hose hooked to the low side, hooked to the gauges, hooked to the nitrogen. Got right at 100 PSI, depending on which gauge you want to look at. So I'm going to leave it right there for a little bit and see if she moves. I got several sets of old gauges. When I bought my house, the guy that was living there, is his sister's house, had a bunch of AC stuff in the garage, and he didn't want to take it with him, so he sold it to me, and that was just a manifold. It had these hoses on it, and I got to looking at them, and they looked pretty bad, so he had this other yellow jacket manifold, which had some pretty nice looking hoses on it. So I went ahead and put them over on my car AC. See, I got a 134A on this. So we'll let her sit here and see if she moves any. Well, pressure's still holding. Let's hook a vacuum to it and just pull a vacuum for a little bit and see what it looks like. Okay, I've got a vacuum pulled on the system. It's not pulled all the way down, but I wanted to try to put some oil in the system. I mean, they don't even tell you how much this stuff holds. It says, the book says to look under the hood, and the hood says mine probably holds 0.81 kilograms of refrigerant. But oil, I just have no idea. I looked online, there's not a lot of information on these. I know I've lost a bunch, replacing the dryer plus the evaporator You know, that would normally be 3 to 6 ounces anyway, so this is an 8-ounce bottle. I'm gonna put most of it in there. I'm gonna try to suck it in through this clear hose. I've got both of these ports turned off. I'm gonna take the cap off of this, stick it down in that hose and open up the vacuum, or stick the hose down in the bottle and open up the vacuum and see if it'll take it. I just turned her off. She was almost empty. So we've got 6 or 7 ounces in there. So I'm going to get this unhooked and then we'll pull a vacuum on the, pull the system down good with a vacuum and put refrigerant in. Here we got 2 hoses on her, but of course we're pulling through the Schrader valve, so it's not going to be, you know, pulling down too quick, but we got her coming on down and I will get some refrigerant ready. I think I'm just going to put the 0.810 kilograms, which best I can tell is approximately 28.5 ounces. And then I guess we can check it and see what the pressures are and go from there. Because it looks like they're saying on the long wheelbase van, if you've got front and rear AC, you need 1.46 kilograms. And if you've got a short wheelbase with front and rear, it's 1.410 kilograms. But if you just have front AC, it's 0.810 kilograms. So that's what I actually did the calculation on. So that's what I'm going to put in it and try it. Well, these little guys are apparently not vacuum rated. I could wiggle them and make them leak under vacuum. So I went ahead, I got one suction side, low side, which is I think a Yellow Jacket brand, and it seems to be doing a lot better with just one hose on it. So I'll let it pull on down here for a little bit and then we'll put us some refrigerant in there and see what we got. Okay, I'm going to turn her back on and pull my gauge off before I put the refrigerant in. Because this particular port seems to be tight, I want to actually put my refrigerant in without, you know, taking it off. So I'm going to pull it off this Schrader, let the pump run for a few more minutes. You can hear it change, tune just getting that off of there. And I'll let it run a few minutes while I get the refrigerant ready. Okay, I've got my hose. It's got refrigerant in it up to right here. I went ahead and screwed it on to let it, you know, pull the vacuum a little bit to get any kind of air that might be right there out. Got her zeroed. So in a minute I'll valve off the vacuum pump, open that valve, and try to get 1 pound and 13 ounces to go in there by itself. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, we got her going in. Like I say, best I can tell, 0.81 kilograms or 810 grams would be equal to like 28.5 ounces.
Metric? Who uses metric?
So I'm gonna go for the 29 ounces or 28.5 heavy, something like that. I found something else online that said it held 32 ounces, but I mean the sticker says what it holds, it just don't say it in ounces. So as quick as that gets down to 1 pound, it'll go as far as it'll go. I may have to start it up and suck the rest of it in, but we'll see if we can get the whole thing just to go ahead and go in there. I think she's gonna make it. Alrighty, we'll put some, I'll get my gauges hooked back up and we will start her up and see what we got. Well, sometimes stuff's worth what you pay for it. That gauge didn't come back down to 0, and I ain't gonna fool with it. I just grabbed my Yellow Jackets. We can set it on 134A here and see what we got. She's a chooching. I need some way to blow some air across it When I first started it up, because it wasn't warm enough for the fan clutch to be on, it actually went off on the high pressure switch at 420 plus pounds on the high side. So get some air going across. It's blowing good and cold, but the pressure dropped a lot once that fan clutch actually kicked in when I got the car up to temperature. So I'm going to just pick up tools and call it a night and see how it works tomorrow. Well, that's it, folks. How to put an evaporator in your 2018 Chevy Express van, and probably a lot of the other Chevy Express vans. Again, the only hard part I thought was getting that one screw out above the blower motor. So hopefully this video will come in handy for somebody. Thanks for watching.